Talk and Power, your motorsport and motoring radio show. Now on 88.5 FM, The Valley Comes Alive. And podcasting across iTunes and talkandpower.com.au.
All right, moving along with the guest tonight. He's no stranger to the podcast, this man. He's come on before briefly with Todd. I think Todd interviewed you a couple of years ago now, during the COVID years, I think it was, when we were trying to get Targa West together. And I think Ross managed to do the 4-day event or the 3-day. I can't remember. I'm talking a little bit out of school, but I know Todd caught up with you. Chris Caruso, welcome to the podcast again.
Thanks a lot. Thanks very much. I think it was a couple of years ago, yeah.
It was a little while ago. Yeah. Chris, for those that aren't familiar with yourself, and not many West Australians wouldn't be, but just in case we've got some people listening from over east and different parts of the world, explain a bit about yourself. You campaign not one, not two, but 3 cars in Targa. Talk us through what you do there.
Yeah, well, we're hoping it was third time lucky, but no, it's just been an evolution for me, I guess. The evolution of the 3 cars. Obviously, I started with the Wyldcat Jaguar, which became infamous around the Targa scene.
Yeah.
And it was basically always entered on an invitational entry, which, it was great fun, and we never really worried too much about the clock. It was all about backing it into every corner and highlighting the spectator stages in the road book, and basically life was pretty good and carefree, as long as we could afford to keep putting tyres on it. So, there came a time where I guess the invitational entry, look, I wouldn't say it was wearing thin, but I came a little bit self-conscious of it because there was a lot of pressure on the Targa guys to let more and more invitational or non-compliant cars in, and I figure eventually I have to sort of get myself into a compliant car as per the regulations, so hence the Corvette. The Corvette was something which I thought would sort of lend itself well to my character and my driving style, big horsepower, rear-wheel drive, that sort of thing, and turned out to be a bit of a handful to develop because it was quite a temperamental car, but it was great fun. It goes like the clappers, makes a lot of noise, and it got to the stage where it was... I'd ironed out most of the sort of problems with it, but then opportunity knocked with the Dodge Viper, and it was already an existing Targa car from a previous competitor.
Okay.
And it was crashed on a stage, actually, when we used to run John Forrest as a stage. And I knew the owner quite well, and over the years after the crash, the car sat around and it didn't, the owner was reluctant to repair it for personal reasons, and eventually I ended up acquiring the car damaged as it last sat outside that tree on John Forrest. Yep. I rebuilt the Viper, and I think it was 2018 I first got it all back together from rebuilding it, and its first event back was actually Race Wars, the runway racing in 2018, and then we since campaigned it in Targa since then.
Yeah, okay. So. Yep. It's a magnificent story of, proud West Australian. I know a lot of West Aussies follow you in the Targa scene. Yeah. I always thought the Jag, I just looked at it before, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought that was Chev, but no.
No, you can be definitely forgiven for thinking that, but you also... you know that I'm a patriot at heart, and even though it's a Pommy car, there had to be a fair bit of Aussie engineering in it. So it's got the old iron line with a fuel-injected VNVP era engine with a Harrop stroker out to 355.
Yep.
Very good low and mid-range torquey engine which suits the heavy Jag and my driving style. So not huge horsepower, heavy car, but very easy to drive on the throttle.
Yeah, okay. Yep. Sounds magnificent when you rocked up before. I was here when you rocked up in the Jag. Sounded absolutely magnificent.
Oh, it's
beautiful
great.
Sounding car.
It's a tribute to Penrite Oil in a way, because most people don't realise when I tell them that the engine in the Jag is still the original engine when I built the car. The Holden that I built for it, the Stroker, running on HPR 30 for almost 20 years, which most people think that I'm making that up, but I'm not.
Yeah, no, it's a magnificent sounding car, beautiful looking car as well. Tell us a bit about Targa this year and what to expect at Targa. You entering again this?
Well, it's all fingers crossed at the moment. It's probably not widely known outside of the Targa community, but certainly within the Targa circles and those that follow it. The last couple of years have been quite a tumultuous time because of. Targa Tasmania had, as you know, they had some fatalities in the last two events. So Motorsport Australia, in their wisdom, decided to cease issuing any more permits for tarmac rally into a major investigation and sort of, I guess, re-engineering of the regulations was issued. So, believe it or not, we still don't have the latest or what will be the amended regulations for 2023. They tell us that they'll be out by June 30, but it doesn't leave a lot of time because there's about 98 recommendations, I believe, in the report. So, look, a bit up in the air, but fingers crossed.
Yep. It's a great motorsport event for Western Australia, isn't it, Chris? Because really, I know we're all here tonight celebrating the supercars in town, and I don't want to say second to that because I feel what you guys do is particularly important to even regional fans as well. I know you don't go out extensively into the bush in the regions, but you do go out to lots of areas. Maryville Downs, I think, is one of them. Bullsbrook, the places like that, and you're bringing people. It's a free event. That's what a lot of people forget.
Yes.
You know, Targa.
Yes.
Ross Tapper and Jan do an absolutely magnificent job for Targa, and bringing that all together. So just explain to the people listening, like Targa, it's timed over a set course, and you go to different locations over the weekend.
So basically, tarmac rallying, as it's known, is carried out predominantly on closed public roads. So there'll be stretches of road that people are familiar with in their, let's say, civilian or everyday life, and then for tarmac rallying, those sections of road that are selected are then closed and become what's called a special stage. Now those stages could range from 5, 10, 15, 20 odd kilometres long. So the name of the game is basically to get from the start of the stage to the end of the stage as fast as you can, and each car will leave in 30-second intervals. So it's a very exciting form of racing. Yes, it is quite dangerous because you're out in forests and that sort of thing, and we do travel down south. We get as far down as Pemberton, Manjimup, Albany.
Targa Southwest,
So, look, it's very exciting. It does go to a lot of regional places, which means that the average fan can actually get very close to the action, and as you say, it's free, there's no entry fees, and in a way, even though it's a very professional form of racing, it's also a very high contact sport with the public in that everybody's everybody's able to communicate with the competitors in the service parks, come and have a look at the cars. I mean, the V8s they are really a fantastic form of racing, but some average sort of fans, they don't really always get the opportunity to get right in and amongst it.
Tell us a bit about like Southwest, because I actually did that. I went a couple of years ago, and I was at the end of the stage, and Dave Smith at the time said you can do sweep. And I said, what does that mean? He goes, just drive behind the support vehicles at the end. And so I did sweep for it was I can't remember which stage it was down there, but I've got to be honest with you, and we did it at 80 k's an hour. At 80 k's an hour, I was in an SUV, but even I said, this is pretty scary. It would be pretty hairy in something like what you guys have got, because trees are from
they're
here
big,
to that polar way.
And they're big.
Yeah.
I guess, look, it's the common denominator is don't look and you'll be all right. So look where you want to go, not where you don't want to, and that's a pretty good start. But look, it's a form of racing that has a navigator or a co-driver, so to speak. So we have pace notes, or they can be also called safety notes. So what happens, we'll do reconnaissance of the courses, and we'll take notes, even though we have an official road book that's supplied to us. We'll actually add a lot of detail to the road conditions, the nature of the corners, the position over crests, for example, where you can't see the road ahead of you. So the navigator or co-driver will be constantly communicating with intercoms, so obviously there's a lot of noise that needs to be blocked out. And it really is a team effort, because if you can't rely and trust your navigator 100%, then you obviously can't perform at a competitive level.
Talk us through your navigator, Seth. I didn't realise he's actually an employee here.
He is at Penrite.
So he's at Penrite. I was talking to him before.
Yeah.
And so, because his role is reading the notes to you, but he has to read it to you in a fashion that he can't be reading it to you when you're there. He has to be reading it, feeding it to you at the appropriate time so that you're prepared for down the track. How hard is that?
It takes a lot of practice, and what you refer to is what we call the delivery of the notes. So you are right. The co-driver or the navigator will have to deliver the notes in accordance with the distance or the actual flow of the road. So that may mean that some calls will be done faster or in a sequence of 2 or 3 notes at once, which will be perhaps underlined in the pace notes. And then where there may be straights of 200-300 metres or perhaps a blind crest, then the delivery of that note will be adjusted according to the distance where you are on the stage.
Because you have the added, in my mind, this is just in my mind, but you had the added complexity of he's in a situation where he's reading you notes in a fashion, but he's also, how much of an eye is he keeping out? Like you could be getting pretty close to a tree or taking a corner, and it's you're going a bit sideways, and you've got the opposite lock on. So there's a moment in his delivery of notes that are we going to be all right here?
There's more than one moment, that's for sure. So what will happen? The co-driver, and I call it a co-driver where those inputs get more, let's just say a navigator is just a clinical, navigation would just be a clinical delivery of the specific notes, whereas a co-driver will actually become part of the driving in that, or watch the tree, or you got a bit close to the tree. So there'll be a little bit of ad-libbing, and also some in-between conversation, as you say, where he might feel that we've done a bad job of setting the car for that corner, or geez, that corner we might have written down as an 8, or maybe that was a 7. So there'll be a little bit of conversation where there's time to do that, and he will mark the note if there has to be something amended. So those amendments will have to be done on the run as well. So it's a very challenging environment, but when it comes together, it's quite a special moment.
It is, I can imagine. I think it's magnificent what you guys do, especially for yourself. You've been, if I think about it, I could be talking out of school here, but you've probably been in the Targa scene out of the longest out of all the competitors. Would I be right in saying that?
Well, we didn't do the first Targa in 2005 because the Jag, even though I had it built, it wasn't, they had changed the regulations by the time I built it. So in 2006, we had come to an agreement that they would let me in as an invitational, and unfortunately, as we all know, 2006 was the fateful year for Peter Brock. So 2006 was technically our first tarmac rally.
I'm just trying to think anyone that, look, Dave Ross or Dave Smith, whoever's listening, Denver as well, all those guys listen, they'll let me know who's maybe done it longer, but I think you'd be up there, certainly.
Well, we'll be up there, I guess, if you say that we started in 2006, but I'm sure somebody who does come to mind will be Nigel Jones. I'm fairly certain, and I stand to be corrected, but I think Nigel may have done every one.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, there you go. Magnificent.
Well, no, I was going to say the same thing. Seeing that you've been on the sport for so long, what advice would you give to someone, someone new wanting to enter the sport? Like, what advice would you give to them?
Well, the best advice I could give is to surround yourself with people who are interested enough to help, so you can build up a core group of support, and then go out and start with some entry-level events. So, for example, Ross Tapper, who's a very dedicated, Ross and Jan, they're very dedicated, not just to delivering events, but also to feeding newcomers.
Fresh
And the Rally Sprint series is a very good example of that. So
is that the one at the Motorplex?
Motorplex,
yes,
yeah.
Of course.
And some of the tarmac events are actually run as Rally Sprint events.
Okay.
Now, the main difference between a Rally Sprint and a tarmac rally is the regulation. So a Rally Sprint can be run under what's called a speed event licence.
Yep.
Whereas a tarmac rally, you have to have a national rally licence, so does the Navigator. So, in other words, a Rally Sprint and the entry-level events are very obtainable to the average person who just wants to start out in an uncaged road car.
Yep. Cool.
So if you're an enthusiast and you might have a high-performance car, along with the preparation and advice, and a little bit of probably driver training, which happens at a lot of different places. So in other words, places where you can test the braking limits and maybe get into a slide and a loop where you're not going to hit anything.
Yeah.
So Wanneroo or say the airport, driver training at the airport.
But you probably want to sit on someone else's team for a couple of events too, just to see how everything runs and works and all the mechanics of it before you even think about even buying a car or entering an event. You'd want to probably sit in a team and just see how everyone links in together and how the whole operation works before you even just go out there and think you can do something.
That's a very, very good point you make, because the other options, and I was referring to people that may have a car, but you've drawn attention to a very good point. A lot of people who are very interested, they don't have a car. So there's great opportunity for navigators or co-drivers or to participate on a crew. So you've hit the nail on the head. If you for whatever reason you don't have a car and that opportunity is not available right away, involve yourself with one of the crews or start learning a bit about co-driving or navigating, because there's still a great demand for co-drivers.
But that's not an easy gig.
It's not an easy gig.
I don't think I could do that.
The co is I don't know.
It's a big responsibility. It's a bigger responsibility than the driver, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, it's and as I said, I did that sweep, and I thought to myself, mate, I'm doing this at 80.
Yeah.
I ain't doing this at
200.
At 200. I'll give you the tip.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting. Very interesting. Chris Penrite, I know they've been a big backer of yours. Talk us through the brand. I asked Johnny before. I said, "You run Penrite, eh?" And he goes, "Yeah, of course." We all run. I think car guys, you just have this tendency to run. I use Penrite in my ride as well, HPR 10 on mine. But talk us through the Penrite Association as well.
Well, I think Penrite. Look, there's some companies they just have a connection with grassroots, and some brands, Penrite is probably one of the best examples of that. They involve themselves at grassroots. You always see the glamour on the top end, where there's big sponsorship deals come and that sort of thing, and you can't help but think, where does all the grassroots and the feeder events, how do they survive? How do they get financed? So Penrite, I think in recent years have made a huge effort to get as much grassroots coverage as they can through the ambassador program, which allows a lot of sort of limited budget teams to relieve a bit of pressure with the product and that sort, because oil's expensive now. In a race car you've got to change it regularly. So I think when you look around at what the Diamond family have done and their team of well, not just sales team, but obviously the whole corporate team, you can tell that they have a passion at grassroots. And look, it's a little bit, I mean, I don't like to sort of, in our field, Shannon's has been a very big supporter of tarmac and grassroots as well. And I sort of put it a little bit like that, in that Shannon's, you're always going to see him rock up with an annex, the Shannon annex, and you've got a great state, excuse me, a great state manager, James MacDonald, and if you can, people would recognise Shannon's as being a great supporter as well of grassroots. So there's a handful of companies like that which builds a lot of brand loyalty.
For sure. Chris, it was a pleasure having you on the podcast. It was great to have you here.
Fantastic.
We can look you up on Facebook or website.
Wyldcat Racing on Facebook or Instagram. That's with a Y, WYLDCAT, Wyldcat Racing. And we're always putting up some updates or some interesting things, what we're getting up to. So.
No. Follow you guys, because it's magnificent, and I love the work you do, and I love the fact that you've been around for a long time and done this for a long time. Good supporter of grassroots motorsport. That's what we need.
Fantastic. Good work.
Thanks, Chris. Really appreciate your time.
Good on you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Cheers.